Hi, I'm Paul Battaglia, and this is section 1.1, rectangular coordinates. I'm joined today by Gabe and Brittany. Welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. So when we look at section 1.1, we'll see that much of the material is review material for most students, if not all of them. They've seen it before in their algebra classes. So right away, what I'd like to get into is a little bit about how you would approach handling those kinds of things, looking for just the introductory stuff, graphing in the Cartesian plane, things of that sense.
So something that I like to emphasize, especially early on, is when students are coming in and plotting points or graphing lines or some early functions, I like to really emphasize that they should label their axes, because something that a lot of students, I think, get confused on or forget is which coordinate goes with the x-axis, which coordinate goes on the y-axis, and just having them label it repeatedly, I feel like helps bring some understanding and some memorization to having the x-axis be the horizontal axis and the y-axis be the vertical axis.
And I think what's important is the mastery of that, even at this level. I mean, yes, it's pre-calculus, but we need students to really, do well with that before we move on in the course.
Yeah.
Brittany, how about you?
Again, with the switching x and y on the coordinates, labeling, as Gabe had said, the coordinates, but also just labeling it x, y every time they write down a point
Right,
to
nice
make
and
sure that
simple.
they have it.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that you can do to try and incite a little bit more excitement, since it's a little bit rote for them to do this kind of thing, is maybe introduce a game. So we're going to go over a game that I would play with my students, just using a deck of cards. And this is a game I use when we introduce the distance and the midpoint formula.
Okay.
So what we're going to have you two do is each take 2 cards, and when you do that, the first card you take is going to be considered the x coordinate, and the second card you take is going to be the y coordinate. Okay, so Brittany, why don't you start us off?
All right, I have an 8, and it's red.
Okay, so one of the things that we'll do is we'll also tell students that the red suits are going to be negative numbers. Okay, so you have your x coordinate is a -8, so you'll take one more.
All right. And now I have a black 10.
Okay, so Brittany's coordinates are -8, +10. And so Gabe, you're going to do the same thing.
Okay. So the first card I picked is a black queen.
Okay.
So what do I do with them?
Right, what do we do there, right? So we have these face cards, and one of the things we have to do for students, again, before we've played the activity, is we have to delineate for them what those things mean. So we'll say, okay, let's make the jack 11. The queen 12, the king 13, right? And then what you invariably want is you want a student to hopefully raise their hand and say, what about the ace, right? And again, teacher choice, student choice, so as a class decide if we want that to be a 1 or a 14, whatever they like. So, okay, so Gabe has a black queen.
Okay, and a black 2.
And a black 2. So Gabe's coordinates are +12, +2. So now what I want the students to do is I want them to pair up, and I want them to use their coordinates to now execute the midpoint formula and the distance formula. So we'll have them do those. As a teacher, we'll circulate around the room. We'll see if there are any questions or problems. And to that end, I'll ask you, what are things that we're looking for in terms of mistakes, common errors?
Okay. So something that I've seen is when using either the Pythagorean theorem or the midpoint formula, anytime you're taking the square root of an a squared plus b squared, students might just say, oh, well, we have something squared plus something squared. We're taking the square root, the squares cancel, and write down the square root of a squared plus b squared is just a plus b. And as we all know, that's not true. So that's something to point out, especially this early in the course, and really emphasize that you can't just do that.
Right. How about you, Brittany?
Just forgetting with the distance formula to take the square root, or for the midpoint formula, forgetting to divide by 2.
Perfect. And I think one of the things that we know is also important is, these are enduring situations and steps that we need students to be involved in. So, when we talk about taking the average with the midpoint formula, it's really important that students understand that, maybe 4 chapters from now, we might be graphing a periodic function. And so we may have to find some very specific points. And so getting used to visually, geometrically thinking of that midpoint formula as the average of a line segment, really helpful, right? So thanks for being with us. We wish you plenty of success in section 1.1.